Hi everybody. Good afternoon. I'm going to spend about the next 10 or 15 minutes talking about providing a helium market update with a specific focus on answering the question: has helium shortage 4.0 really come to an end? Before I jump into that, I just want to briefly introduce myself to those of you who might not know me. I am the president of Kornbluth Helium Consulting LLC, and my consultancy specializes in all commercial aspects of the global helium business. And among other things, I'm a member of Gasworld magazine's editorial advisory board, and I speak at their conferences and other industry conferences from time to time. Okay, I'd like to start out with a brief recap of helium shortage 4.0, and just to say that helium shortage 4.0 started in early 2022. 2022 was supposed to be the year of where the helium market finally transitioned to plentiful supply, as a big new source in Russia, Gazprom's Amur facility, was supposed to ramp up production. But there was an explosion at the plant on January 5th of 2022, and instead of getting a large quantity of new supply into the market, the supply from the Amur facility was postponed for roughly 2 years until it finally restarted in September of 2023. Around the same time, the Bureau of Land Management experienced a major outage of their crude helium enrichment unit between January and June of 2022. That took another 15% of supply off the market. And there were a handful of other supply disruptions during the same period. There was planned maintenance in Qatar. Algerian production was reduced somewhat due to the war in Ukraine. There was an explosion of a small plant in Kansas. So a whole host of things went wrong. And we ended up, as I said, instead of transitioning to plentiful supply in 2022, we had a pretty severe shortage that lasted all the way through 2023. Helium shortage 4.0 began to ease during the second half of 2023 due to slumping demand from the electronics market, demand destruction, and the impact of some supply from new sources, especially toward the end of the year. All right, so where are we now? The helium shortage 4.0 came to an end by the end of 2023. It's always difficult. It's kind of like calling the beginning and the end of a recession. You don't know it for sure until you're looking at it in the rearview mirror. But supply is plentiful now, and the key factors contributing to the end of the shortage were, as I mentioned, Amur production commenced during the first week of September 2023. It's ramped up to the point where global supply has increased by about 10% due to Amur, and the trade restrictions have not really prevented Russian supply from getting to market. It's mostly going to China and other Asian markets, and as a result, it's pushing helium from Qatar out of Asia back to Europe. It's pushing U.S. exports back to the U.S. It's definitely impacting the market. The other big factor is that the slump in semiconductor manufacturing reduced demand, especially in those Asian markets that cater to electronics. Most of the supply allocations have largely been removed. It's no longer difficult to secure new supply. China is actually experiencing a pretty severe oversupply due to the influx of Russian product. And contract prices are experiencing what I would call cross currents, depending on whether you're talking about new business or existing contracts, and where you are geographically. You could be looking at stable prices, price increases, or price decreases. So what's the outlook for the rest of the year? Well, the most likely scenario is continued plentiful supply. That's what the fundamentals point toward. But the key variable is production from Amur and Russia. So As of right now, the expectation is that Amur is going to produce 500 to 600 million feet this year from the first of their 3 helium plants, and they've been running at that level, so it's not a stretch to put that number out there. Electronics demand is expected to gradually recover this year, but at best get back to where it was in 2022. The Freeport LNG plant is expected to add about 200 million feet a year of new supply to the market in the second half of the year. That's a new Lindy source. And I think, again, pricings will continue to experience cross currents with price increases for existing contracts or stable prices, but softer prices for new or renewal contracts. So it depends on your contract situation, where you are geographically, etc. And as I've referred to it, the helium supply chain is going to remain fragile, and there's a risk. I don't have a crystal ball. No one else has a crystal ball. There's definitely risks to the picture that I've painted here. So what could go wrong? Well, there could be new sanctions on Russian supply that take some of that supply off the market. As I speak, the EU is looking at imposing new sanctions on the supply of Russian helium into the EU. A lot depends on the details of those sanctions, what exactly they say, and and how they get implemented. But there is definitely a risk that some of the Russian supply would come off the market, and that would tighten up supply. The second big risk factor is geopolitics. Everybody knows there's a war in the Middle East. So far, it hasn't disrupted helium production from Qatar. Qatar is not directly involved in this conflict, and Qatar produces around a third of the world's helium supply. The impact so far has been, the Houthis have been attacking cargo vessels in the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea, and that has caused cargo vessels to be rerouted around the Cape of Good Hope. And that's lengthened the supply lines. It's caused extra expense, but it hasn't taken the supply off the market. It hasn't disrupted production of LNG in Qatar. There is a risk. I'm not sure if it's a 10% risk or a 15% risk or whatever, but there's certainly a risk of a broader war between Israel and Iran. And if that were to happen, it could threaten LNG and helium production from Qatar. Specifically, the threat would come when, if and when shipments through the Straits of Hormuz were disrupted, and that would have a major impact on the helium business. And then the third risk factor that I'd mention is plant outages, both planned and unplanned. There is a history of sometimes severe plant outages that were completely unexpected. We've already talked about the explosion at Amur in January of 2023, but there was a similar kind of event at Skikda, Algeria, quite a few years ago now, where that plant, 3 trains of the LNG plant blew up and took a considerable amount of helium supply off the market for a period of several years. And then we always, are exposed to planned outages, whether it's in Qatar or Exxon or somewhere else. So there is risk to the outlook that I'm putting out there. And whenever you do forecasts like this, not only can you be wrong, but you could be wrong quickly. So the biggest thing that could make me be wrong quickly would be new tighter sanctions on Russian supply. Okay, so summing all of this up, the helium shortage 4.0 has definitely ended as of late last year, very early this year. No question about it, helium supply is currently plentiful. There's oversupply in some markets, especially in China. And the fundamentals point toward plentiful supply throughout the remainder of this year and the years to come. and actually, an oversupply as we go out into the future. But the helium supply chain remains fragile. There are definitely risks to the outlook that I'm portraying, including tighter sanctions on Russian helium, war in the Middle East, and plant outages. So, unfortunately, I'm not there to answer your questions, but hopefully, this is a reasonable summary of what's going on in the helium market. And I think I stayed within my allotted time. So, thank you very much for your attention.